Good evening, conscious souls. I am Naomi, and from my little corner of the world, where the aroma of green tea mingles with the whisper of bamboo in the garden, I warmly welcome you to Minimalist Charm. Today, I would like to invite you on an intimate journey, not through distant landscapes, but into our own homes and, more deeply, into the heart of our emotions. I remember with a clarity that still sends shivers down my spine the afternoon when, after my grandmother Akiko passed away, I was faced with the overwhelming task of sorting through her belongings. Every object, from a cracked ceramic bowl she held in her hands every morning to a silk haori faded by the sun and the years, seemed to vibrate with her essence. I sat on the tatami floor, surrounded by boxes exuding the subtle scent of camphor and memories, and a deep paralysis came over me. How could I, with what right, decide the fate of these pieces that had woven the fabric of her life? I felt that by letting go of these objects, I was erasing precious fragments of her memory, and with them, a part of my own history. It was my Uncle Kenji, a man of few words but immense quiet wisdom, who found me like this. He placed a gentle hand on my shoulder and said, "Naomi-chan, objects like people have their own sutome, their service, their duty in the world. They have fulfilled their purpose with Oba-chan. Now we must thank them and allow them to continue their journey or find their rest. Holding on to them out of sadness or guilt is preventing energy from flowing, theirs and yours." Those words resonated with me like a katsu, a sharp blow from a Zen monk's stick, awakening me to a new understanding. The act of saying goodbye was not a betrayal, but a ritual of love and respect, a ceremony of liberation. And I know that many of you, on your own paths, face similar dilemmas. Perhaps it is not the physical loss of a loved one, but the invisible weight of years of accumulation, gifts received out of obligation that now sit at the back of a closet, objects that echo broken dreams or past versions of yourselves that you no longer identify with. You feel your homes, and by extension your minds, weighed down, as if the air itself has become thick and difficult to breathe. You find it hard to let go, not because of the material value of the things, but because of that emotional bond, often invisible but incredibly powerful, that ties us to them. Japanese minimalism, as my grandmother Akiko taught me, and as I have come to live it, offers us a bright path to navigate these waters. It goes far beyond simply having less. It is a philosophy that invites us to deep introspection, to understand the essence of what surrounds us, and, in doing so, to understand ourselves better. Today I want to share with you some reflections, some sacred keys from Japanese tradition, to learn how to say goodbye to our objects in a way that heals the soul and frees up space, not only in our closets, but also, and more importantly, in our hearts. This is more than organization. It is a ceremony of emotional liberation. One of the first insights that blossomed in me, thanks to my grandmother's teachings, is the importance of recognizing and honoring the emotional connection we have with our objects. In Japan, there is a beautiful concept called mono no aware, which could be translated as the sensitivity or pathos of things. It is a bittersweet appreciation, a melancholic tenderness toward the transitory nature of life and the objects that accompany it. It is not about denying the sadness or nostalgia that an object can evoke, but rather embracing it as part of its inherent beauty, like the dew on a cherry blossom petal about to fall. My grandmother Akiko used to say, as she caressed the surface of an old lacquer box, "An object that has been loved carries with it a fragment of the soul of the one who loved it." When we are faced with an object laden with memories, the old guitar we learned to play on, letters from a childhood sweetheart, the first edition of a book that opened our minds, it is natural to feel a twinge in our hearts. The common mistake, the trap we often fall into, is to believe that by letting go of the object, we are discarding the love, memory, or identity associated with it. I remember Elena, a talented graphic designer from Mexico City. Her closet was a sanctuary of her youth, filled with clothes from her college days, garments that no longer fit her or reflected the sophisticated, confident woman she had become. "Naomi," she confessed to me in a voice tinged with anguish during one of our conversations, "I feel like if I get rid of these clothes, I'm throwing away my best years, the idealistic, dreamy young woman I once was. It's like betraying a part of myself. What Elena feared losing was not the worn fabric or outdated styles, but the vital connection to that vibrant, passionate version of herself. For her, and for many like her, the key is understanding that we are not discarding a part of ourselves, but honoring a story that has already been lived. Before deciding the fate of an object, take it in your hands. Allow yourself to feel. Ask yourself, what story does this object tell? What emotion does it bring me? Don't rush. Give that feeling space. If the object is bulky or no longer functional, but the memory is precious, consider taking an artistic photograph of it. Sometimes an image is enough to preserve the essence without the physical burden of the object. And above all, be grateful for the lesson or service. Thank you for reminding me of my youthful passion, Elena might have thought. By honoring its history, we can release it and free ourselves with love and gratitude. This leads us naturally to another fundamental practice in this art of letting go, the ritual of conscious gratitude. Before an object leaves our space, it is essential to express our arigato, our gratitude. This idea is inspired by practices such as kuyo, which are memorial services that in Japan are sometimes even performed for objects that have served well and for a long time, such as antique dolls, sewing needles, or tools. This act transforms discarding, often perceived as cold and utilitarian, into a gesture of deep respect and recognition. It is not about throwing things into a trash bag with disdain or indifference, but about acknowledging their service, their contribution to our lives, however small. My grandmother Akiko was a living example of this. I remember how she would clean and fold each garment she was going to donate, murmuring soft words of gratitude. "This coat kept me warm during many cold winters," she would say as she smoothed the fabric. "Now it can keep someone else warm who needs it." For her, every object possessed an energy, almost a spirit, that deserved to be treated with dignity until the end of its useful life with us. Recently, I accompanied Javier, an architect from Santiago, Chile, through this process. He is a creative and passionate man, but his studio had become a maze of tools, old models, and materials from past projects. "Naomi, I feel guilty," he confessed to me. "I know I don't use many of these things anymore, but they cost me money, effort, and sleepless nights. Throwing them away feels like a horrible waste." I suggested that, before making any decisions, he spend some time with each meaningful object. That he take it in his hands, clean it if necessary, and sincerely thank it for its contribution to his career, to the projects it helped bring to life. At first he was skeptical, but he gave it a try. Weeks later he called me with a noticeably lighter voice. "It was amazing, Naomi. I donated some things to architecture students, recycled others with a sense of closure, not loss. It's as if by thanking them, I closed a pending cycle." His studio, once a reflection of his overwhelm, began to breathe, to become a space of inspiration once again. We contrast this with the all-too-common use and throw-away mentality, where objects become invisible, almost a nuisance, once they lose their immediate usefulness to us. The Japanese approach invites us to consider the entire life cycle of an object, to treat it with respect even as we say goodbye. So before you donate, sell, or recycle, clean the object. It's a gesture of care. Hold it in your hands and thank it verbally, or in your heart. "Thank you for your service. Thank you for the joy you gave me. Thank you for the lesson I learned with you." And if you're donating it, imagine for a moment the person who will receive it and how it will serve them. This helps you let go with a spirit of generosity and connection. And so we come to another crucial aspect, understanding the tsutumi of the object. Tsutumi is a Japanese word that refers to the service, duty, role, or mission of something or someone. Every object that comes into our lives does so, from this perspective, to fulfill a specific purpose for us at that moment. A book arrives to be read and to convey its wisdom or story to us. A dress, to be worn on a special occasion and to make us feel a certain way. A tool, to help us create or repair something. Once that purpose has been fulfilled, Once the object has performed its sutum in our lives, holding on to it can be like retaining a guest who has finished their visit and longs to continue on their way, or like preventing a river from following its natural course to the sea. I clearly remember when I decided to tackle my personal library, a space I had always considered sacred and untouchable. It had shelves full of textbooks from my college years, thick volumes on philosophy, sociology, art history, books I hadn't opened in over a decade. At first I felt that familiar tug of just in case, that voice whispering, "What if I need it someday?" But then I stopped and asked myself, applying my grandmother's wisdom, what was the sutum of these books in my life? Their mission was to teach me, expand my mind, give me the foundation for my development, and they did that beautifully. They had served their purpose with me. Now their sutum could be to continue that mission with someone else, with a student who might not be able to afford to buy them new. By donating them to a local university library, I felt that I was not only freeing up physical space, but also honoring their original purpose and allowing their wisdom to continue to flow. This same reflection helped Luisa, a talented chef in Bogota, whose small apartment was crammed with pots, pans, and kitchen utensils, many of them inherited from her mother and grandmother, pieces she no longer used because culinary technology had advanced and she had more modern and efficient equipment. "It's so hard for me, Naomi," she said with a sigh. "They were my mother's. Every time I see them, I feel her presence, but they take up so much space, and I don't cook with them anymore." Together, we explored the sutomy of those utensils. They served her mother wonderfully, allowing her to create dishes that nourished and delighted her family for years. And they also served Luisa in her early days, when she was learning the secrets of family cooking. They had more than fulfilled their mission with honor. Recognizing this, Luisa was able to lovingly select the 2 or 3 most meaningful pieces to keep as a treasure, as a tangible memory, and donate the rest to a community kitchen where she knew they would continue to fulfill a noble purpose, feeding others. The common mindset is to accumulate things in case we need them someday, without clearly defining when that someday is, or whether the object, after being stored for so long, is still suitable for that supposed future use. So with each object that raises doubts, ask yourself, what was its main purpose when it came into my life? Has it already fulfilled that purpose? If its mission with you is over, could it begin a new mission with someone else? This makes it much easier to donate or even sell. And if the object is broken or truly unusable, its final sutum can be broken down and transformed through conscious recycling, returning to the earth or the production chain in a respectful way. When we say goodbye to what no longer serves us, we are not just getting rid of objects. We are, in a very profound way, creating Ma and embracing the healing power of empty space. In Japanese aesthetics and philosophy, Ma is a concept of extraordinary beauty and importance. It refers to empty space, the interval, the pause between things, between sounds, between moments. But it is not simply absence. Ma is an active and essential part of the overall composition. Think of an ikebana flower arrangement. Its beauty lies not only in the flowers and branches, but also, crucially, in the space that surrounds and defines them. A traditional Japanese room, with its clean lines and sparse furnishings, values emptiness greatly, because it is that emptiness that allows vital energy kai to flow freely, and the mind to find a place to rest and expand. When we consciously say goodbye to our objects, we are cultivating Ma in our homes, and by extension, in our lives. This empty space is vital for our emotional healing and mental clarity. A cluttered, chaotic home is often a mirror of an equally cluttered and anxious mind. By creating physical space, we invite calm, introspection, and a new way of inhabiting our inner world. I met Miguel, a sensitive and talented writer from Madrid who lived in a small apartment in the Malasaña neighborhood, a space that, while charming, was literally crammed with books stacked to the ceiling, papers, travel souvenirs, and objects of all kinds. He felt creatively blocked, anxious, as if the walls themselves were closing in on him. "It's as if there's no room for new ideas to come in, Naomi," he confessed to me in frustration. As he applied these principles of conscious letting go, releasing objects with gratitude, his apartment began to breathe. The Ma he created wasn't just physical, he felt, in his own words, a thick fog lifting from his mind. "Now I have room to think, Naomi, room to create," he told me enthusiastically a few weeks later, showing me the first pages of a new novel. The emptiness, far from being frightening, became a fertile canvas for his new ideas. This contrasts sharply with the widespread tendency in our culture to fill every corner, every moment, fearing emptiness as if it were a sign of failure or lack. Once you have cleared an area, resist the instinctive urge to fill it immediately with something else. Simply enjoy the emptiness for a while. Feel how the energy in the room changes, how you feel in it. Designate, if you like, a small corner or surface in your home to keep deliberately empty or with a single object that inspires serenity. Let it be your personal reminder of the restorative power of Ma. Pay attention to how you feel in a more uncluttered space, calmer, more focused, lighter. That feeling, that lightness, is the true gift of Ma. Another important barrier that often prevents us from letting go is the misunderstood concept of motai nai and the ghosts of the past that cling to our objects. Motai nai is a deeply rooted Japanese expression that conveys a feeling of regret or remorse for waste. It is, in essence, a wonderful virtue that encourages respect for resources, frugality, and appreciation for what we have. However, too often, this noble concept is misunderstood or applied rigidly, becoming an excuse to hoard indefinitely. "I can't throw this away. It would be motai nai," we say about that gift we never liked but kept out of obligation, about the clothes that no longer fit but cost a lot, or about that exercise machine we bought with great enthusiasm and now gathers dust in a corner, a silent monument to our unfulfilled good intentions. The real waste, as my grandmother Akiko taught me by her calm example, is not in letting go of an object that no longer serves a valuable purpose in your current life. The real motai nai is allowing that object to deteriorate without being used, taking up precious physical and mental space, and worse, often generating a subtle but persistent sense of guilt or failure every time we see it. I myself fell into this trap for a long time. I had a very elegant dress by a well-known designer, which I had bought with great excitement for a very important wedding that, due to unforeseen circumstances, I was ultimately unable to attend. For years that dress hung in my closet, immaculate, with its tag still on. Every time I saw it, I felt a twinge, a reminder of the money wasted, the missed opportunity, the beauty not enjoyed. The feeling of motai nai prevented me from letting it go. "It's too good to give away, and I can't find the right moment to wear it," I told myself. One day, as I reflected on these teachings, I realized the real motai nai was that this beautiful garment, designed to make someone feel special, was languishing in the darkness of my closet instead of fulfilling its sutom, its purpose of adorning and bringing joy. I decided to sell it for a symbolic price to a young woman I knew who lit up with happiness when she tried it on. The money was secondary. The release from that silent burden of guilt and seeing the dress finally fulfill its destiny was the real reward. Often, these objects also represent past versions of ourselves or unfulfilled dreams. The untouched painting supplies we bought with the intention of becoming artists. The books in a language we started studying fervently, but gave up on after a few weeks. Saying goodbye to them also means kindly letting go of the guilt for not having been that person, or not having achieved that specific goal, and recognizing that we are constantly evolving. So I invite you to redefine the concept of waste. What is really more wasteful? Allowing something valuable to go to ruin without being used, or giving it the opportunity to serve and bring joy to someone else. Also consider the invisible cost of storing that object, the space it takes up in your home, the mental energy it consumes every time you think about it, the guilt or frustration it may generate. Sometimes letting go represents a net gain in well-being. If an object reminds you of a bad purchase or a failed project, thank it for the lesson it has taught you. Forgive yourself with compassion, and let it go. You are releasing a ghost from the past and making room for your present. And finally, this path of conscious letting go leads us to find true shiawase, shingsei, insufficiency, the serene and profound joy that emanates from the conscious less. Shiawazi is a Japanese word commonly translated as happiness, well-being, or good fortune. In the context of Japanese minimalism and a life lived with intention, this shiawazi does not spring from the constant accumulation of material goods or the relentless pursuit of the next novelty. Rather, it arises from a deep and heartfelt appreciation for what one already has, from recognizing and embracing the beauty of sufficiency. It is a quiet joy, a contentment of the soul that flourishes when our physical environment becomes a harmonious reflection of our inner essence and our most authentic values, rather than a chaotic repository of obligations, other people's expectations, and unfulfilled aspirations. This principle is beautifully intertwined with the concept of Wabi-Sabi, that Japanese aesthetic sensibility that finds profound beauty in the imperfect, the impermanent, and the simple. When we learn to let go of the superfluous, the things that weigh us down, the things that no longer resonate with who we are today, we begin to value in a much more intimate and meaningful way the objects we consciously choose to accompany us on our journey. A handmade ceramic bowl with a small irregularity that tells the story of the fire and the hands that created it can bring much more shiawazi to our days than a dozen perfect pieces produced en masse, but lacking soul and personal history. Valeria, a renowned interior designer in Buenos Aires, ironically lived trapped in the maelstrom of consumerism that she often criticizes in her profession. Her apartment, though elegantly decorated, looked like a catalog of the latest trends, but she felt deeply empty and constantly anxious. "Naomi," she confessed to me with a sincerity that moved me, "every new purchase, every designer object I add, gives me a momentary rush, a little spark of excitement, but then, inevitably, I feel dissatisfied again, as if something is always missing." Through the patient process of conscious letting go, applying these reflections we have shared, Valeria began to strip away the layers of the imposed and the superficial and connect with what truly brought her value and joy on a deeper level. She drastically reduced her belongings, keeping only what she genuinely loved, what was essentially useful to her, or what connected her to precious memories. "Naomi, it's incredible. It's like I've discovered a hidden treasure in my own home," she wrote to me a few weeks later, her voice in the message filled with a new serenity. "I've never felt so rich with so little. Every object that surrounds me now has a story, a special meaning for me. I find immense shiawazi in the simplicity of my morning cup of tea, in the light that streams through my now uncluttered window and settles on the bare wood of my table." The prevailing mindset in our consumer society constantly pushes us to seek happiness in the next purchase, in the more, in the new. The path of conscious minimalism, inspired by Japanese wisdom, shows us that lasting joy, true shiawazi, lies in enough, in the quality of our connection to what we choose to own, and in the freedom we find in letting go of what weighs us down. I invite you to reflect on what is truly enough for your well-being and happiness. It is not a fixed number or a universal formula. It is a personal feeling of contentment and harmony. When acquiring new objects, prioritize those that are durable, beautiful to your eyes, and truly useful or meaningful. Invest in pieces that will be with you for a long time, that will age with you. And above all, practice daily gratitude for the objects you have consciously chosen to be part of your life. Use your favorite tableware without waiting for a special occasion. Light that scented candle you love so much. Shiawazi is often found in the conscious use and enjoyment of what we already have. My dear friends, the Japanese art of saying goodbye to our belongings is, as you can see, much more than a simple technique for tidying up a physical space. It is a profound journey of self-discovery, a meditation in motion, an act of emotional healing that transforms us from the inside out. By taking the time to recognize the emotional connection we have with our belongings, by sincerely thanking them for their service, by understanding that their mission with us may have come to an end, by courageously embracing the space their departure creates, and by freeing ourselves from the guilt and ghosts of the past that often cling to them, we not only transform our homes, but also, and more significantly, we transform our lives. It is not, and never has been, in the true minimalist philosophy, about living with deprivation or giving up beauty, but about living with clear and conscious intention. It is about choosing to surround ourselves only with that which nourishes our soul, supports our present life in all its facets, and allows us to move into the future with a sense of lightness, clarity, and purpose. Imagine for a moment a home that is a true personal sanctuary, a refuge that reflects your inner peace and your most authentic aspirations. Imagine a clear mind, free from the unnecessary weight of the past and anxiety about the future, open and receptive to the infinite possibilities of the present. This transformation, I assure you, is absolutely possible for each and every one of you. As an old Japanese proverb that my grandmother Akiko used to adapt with a wise smile says, "Suteru anata wa adarashi anata." By letting go, you renew yourself. By consciously and gratefully letting go of what no longer serves you, what anchors you or weighs you down, you open yourself wide to a new version of yourself, a more authentic, more serene, more deeply alive version. I sincerely hope that these words and the humble teachings I have shared, inspired by the wisdom of my grandmother Akiko and Japanese tradition, have resonated with you and offered you a new perspective. If so, I joyfully invite you to join our growing community here at Encanto Minimalista. Subscribe to the channel so you don't miss our future shared journeys toward a simpler, fuller, and more meaningful life. And if this message has struck a chord in your soul, please give us a like. That small gesture helps us immensely to reach more people who, like you, may be seeking this path of peace and clarity. But above all, I would love to read your thoughts. Comment below which of these ideas or concepts you feel you need to explore more in your life, or what small object, perhaps one that came to mind while you were listening, you are willing to let go of with gratitude this week. Write "conscious letting go with gratitude" if you commit to trying this approach and, if you wish, to sharing your experience with us later. Thank you so much for joining me today in this space of calm and reflection. May you find peace and simplicity, joy and sufficiency, and deep healing in the art of letting go. Matane, until next time.